Well, hello everybody. I am so glad to be here with Stacie Denits. She is this wonderful person I just met a few minutes ago who inspired me to say, may I interview you? Because we were talking about Prop 37 and your passion for eating healthy because of your life experience. So I really wanted to catch you on film because I felt like you were speaking some real truths, and it's important for us to educate one another about this and create a social dialogue.
Yes, absolutely. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010. There's a lot of family history, but one of the most obvious Annie's in the corner to get cancer is environmental factors. A lot of people get them due to environmental factors. We were talking about Prop 37, genetically modified foods, and so I had mentioned how after myself surviving cancer, I approached the grocery store at a completely different stance than I had before my diagnosis. Number one being pesticides. It's been a proven fact that pesticides mimic estrogen. Now, why would I want to put estrogen in my body if estrogen caused me cancer?
Right.
It's been fascinating and it's been hard, and I've learned a lot of truths about how we need to have a culture change within our society, within how we eat foods, how we look at foods, how we grow foods. And it's quite unfortunate. I mean, this is coming from the top down. It's unfortunate that we have to spend more money on foods that are going to serve our bodies better when there's less processing of that food. You know, you can pay $2 for a box of macaroni and cheese that has been highly processed. It's powdered cheese is infused with hormones. It's probably processed on something that is a gluten line. Things that our bodies do just not need to survive and to live a long, healthy life. In fact, I was watching the news yesterday evening, and I had heard about a study that's being conducted of children that are after our generation, mine and yours, they're going to have a lower life expectancy rate because of the foods that we're putting into our bodies. Now, a lot of people, they're not an advocate for change, they don't like change, they're completely unaware, and they lack mindfulness. You know, if something is inexpensive and it tastes good, let's put it in our body without knowing what's in it. And yet, we wonder why people are having, you know, long-term health care side effects. You know, this has everything to do with our soil.
Everything to do with what we put into our soil and how we eat it. And the genetically modified food industry is really pushing for us to go more unconscious.
Right, and so, you know, we have to be an advocate for Proposition 37. You know, we have to start by labeling the foods appropriately and then teach people how to read the labels and help those that aren't aware to be aware. I mean, that's the first step.
So, question to you.
Yes.
Do you want to eat genetically modified foods?
No. No.
No.
No, and I have a 3-year-old. I mean, I have to be conscious every minute of what I'm putting in her body.
Right.
You know, because there's going to come a time that she's not going to depend on me to feed her. She's going to feed herself. And I have to be sure that what I'm feeding her is going to give her the independence to make conscientious choices for her children and their children. Because remember, this isn't our world. We're only borrowing it from our grandchildren.
Right.
So what we do now, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I so honor your quest into creating health for your body and for your 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Is there any last thing that you'd like to share?
You know, think globally, act locally.
Well, thank you so much, Stacie.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to connect with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My my father-in-law came into town last night. He said, so what, and I was focused on something else, and he had said, so what are you going to vote for Prop 37? And I was like, knee deep in something else, and I was like, what? He's like, oh, I think I know what you're going to vote. I was like, oh, Prop 37. Of course you know what I'm going to vote.
Right. What are you going to vote?
So, my husband comes from a different background than myself, and, I've enlightened him, with this organic approach that everyone needs to be on. It just drives me insane. I'll be at the food store and I'm looking at genetically modified meat because I'm not vegan yet, and I'm looking at organic, and I'm looking at the price difference, and I'm like, it's a lifestyle. Just like someone wants to go, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle change, and everyone has a capacity to have that lifestyle change.
What about just the fact that we have to fight for the basic right to be able to eat in a healthy way versus, how culturally it's just accepted that we're poisoning the planet with the pesticides, and that it's accepted that we're genetically modifying food in a way that supports more of an industry for the larger corporate.
Yeah. It is. It's
because I feel like this is just like a symptom. I think that these are symptoms of the larger issue around the value, and it's not and we're just fighting the symptoms.
They are symptoms, and if we don't stop now, it's only going to get worse. I mean, right now we're breeding a society that is so impulsive and needs everything at its fingertips. I want my fast food now. I need this now. It's complete individualization. And the food system is not helping.
It's not well. There's like a the momentum around how culture is moving faster and faster, which was what you were pointing to.
Yeah.
And then the individualistic, that we're just trying to survive. And I think once again these are all like the symptoms of this larger.
We're in a state of mind right now.
And the larger culture that is. I feel like there's such a need for us to turn around culturally to reconnect communally in our communities, so that we can support the challenges of a functional Earth in the next 20, 40, 60 years for the children, because at the level that we're operating, it's not sustainable.
Right.
It's not and yet the momentum of the corporate is still functioning to propel us towards taking away our basic rights of knowing what we eat, and so we're fighting the symptoms and not the root cause.
Right.
So what would be, like, if we could fight the root cause, what would that look like? Do you have any ideas about what that would look like? Because that's kind of my curiosity, is like, what, how do we, because in Europe, one of the things that they actually did in Europe is that they had people coming in off the streets and demanding that they take genetically modified foods off the counters and not allow them in the stores, so that they actually basically put their foot down. And it wasn't even about labeling, it was about saying this is unhealthy and we say no. But there's a way in which here in America there's a passive component to our uprising. So I'm curious about that.
I do agree with you. I mean, I think that a lot of our society in America is still passive, but I have to give credit to, to the talk shows, yesterday, the Today Show, and I don't even watch those religiously, but they coined it for yesterday, the Fat Show,
meaning
the Fat Show, talking about obesity.
Oh, right.
About how can we get to the root cause of obesity, and they put a lot of their research and a lot of yesterday's show talking about school systems, their lunch. I wouldn't be able to answer that. That's
I know, it's a big question. It's one that I'm looking into as far as like the root cause around what it is, and it's frustrating and challenging to look at how we're just spending so much time
we would have to have
fighting
a drastic
change.
Right. It'd be nice if I could go door to door and say, here's some seeds. Plant these in your backyard. here's a chicken, you know, you look at people that are inner city. Are you still recording?
Yeah. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. That's such a hard question, not anything that I can answer. I mean, it's great that we have people like you and me that are advocates for change and understanding the components of acceptance and how we got ourselves here and how we can undo that. But there's so much unlearning that's going to need to be done, and there's going to be a large population within our society that are going to throw their hands up in the air and say, forget it, I am where I am, and I'm not changing because this is how I was raised and these are the foods that I was raised on, and you know, it's like pulling candy from a fat kid.
Right. No! You know, I often think that it's going to take the crash in order for us to regrow ourselves.
Right.
And that, you know, and I think that there's a lot of ways that it's uncertain what that might look like if it happens or it doesn't happen, but there's that looming possibility.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that the stores will run out of the foods, and that then there'll be just these, who knows what it'll look like, but that, you know, I think that some people, then they would have to change if that was the case, and then that's where individuals such as us and others who want, you know, like who want to and have been focusing, have the opportunity to grow things in a different way.
You know, part of it that's going to help is if people assess and are able to honestly differentiate their wants from their needs. You know, like I said, you know, highly impulsive society, we can't live without our cell phone, we got to call people now. What happened in the days of community? What happened to, you know, waiting to call Joe Schmo after you got off work or text or whatnot? I was leading to a point and I forgot it.
The impulsive culture.
There's just so
the
much
impulsive
that we're
culture.
going to have to unlearn. Like I'm back on track. We were talking about assessing needs and wants. So many people in our society think that they need an iPad, but yet they'll go through the drive-thru and give themselves, you know, a Big Mac, you know, which is going to help sustain their life in a longer span, you know. So if you're going to change your language and say, okay, I don't need that device, I don't need the cell phone, I don't need the this, instead I'm going to take those funds and put it towards something that I do need, that's going to help me to live in a healthy way, and that's, you know, food. But people are going to have to learn to love themselves. There's so many different factors that are going to come into play about this, you know, paradigm shift in culture and food, and there's too much.
Well,
So-
and love themselves and work together towards loving each other and sharing the abundance that is when we actually grow a garden.
Yeah, but if people can learn to love themselves and assess their wants and their needs and think about tomorrow, not just today, then people are going to be able to look at food and say, okay, what is going to sustain me longer? You know, why do you think people get on the paleo diet? Why do you think people become vegans, vegetarians? Because they're aware of the fact that there's so many things that are being put in our food that is not crucial to making our heart beat and our brain function.
Well said. Well said, Stacie.
Thank you.
I am very pleased with all of your information and perspectives, and I'm glad that I caught you. Thank you.
you.
Now.
Thank you.